Of all the cruel jokes life plays, running into him in a rundown grocery store at midnight had to be the worst or maybe the best. Depends on how you look at it. I was just there for beer and chips, not for a stranger who would shatter every carefully built wall around me. Ethan stood in front of the refrigerator aisle, his hand hovering over a carton of milk like it carried the weight of 1,000 choices. I almost laughed at how ridiculous it looked, two grown men frozen by dairy products, but then he turned his head. His eyes caught mine, and the world suddenly felt like it had tilted just a little off its axis. I told myself not to stare. I told myself not to care. But there was something about him, something tired, something lonely, something so painfully familiar it made my chest ache. It's funny, isn't it? How we build lives on rules, on labels, on who we're supposed to be, only for someone to come along and destroy it with one glance. The town of Maplewood, New Jersey, wasn't exactly the kind of place where secrets stayed buried. Everybody knew everybody. And if you were different, even just a little, you became the story whispered in barbershops and church pews. I had learned that the hard way. That's why I kept to myself. No risks, no mistakes, and definitely no chance encounters with boys who looked like trouble wrapped in vulnerability. Sorry, Ethan said, his voice carrying a nervous edge as he reached for the milk at the same time I did. Our fingers brushed. A simple touch, but it was enough to spark something sharp, electric, terrifying. I pulled my hand back as if burned. Go ahead, I muttered, pretending like my pulse hadn't just doubled. He gave me a small smile, the kind you give when you're trying to hide how much the moment meant. Thanks. Guess midnight grocery runs are dangerous. I almost laughed. Dangerous. If only he knew. The truth is, love stories, real ones, don't start with fireworks and orchestras. They start in silence, in accidents, in the most mundane places. And they don't ask for permission. They just happen, dragging you along whether you're ready or not. We left the store together, bags in hand. The night was cool, the streets empty, the hum of streetlights buzzing like secrets waiting to be told. I should have said goodbye right there, but something in me, a reckless, buried part, didn't want the night to end. So, Ethan began, his voice soft. You're not from around here, are you? I hesitated. Born and raised. Just keep to myself. His eyes lingered on me longer than they should have. Funny. You look like someone who's been trying to run away his whole life. The words cut deeper than I wanted to admit. Maybe because they were true. From that night, it started slowly, quietly, like a fire you don't notice until it's already spread too far. He'd show up at the diner where I worked, ordering black coffee he never finished. He'd ask questions I didn't want to answer. He'd look at me like I was worth knowing. And I hated it. I hated how much I wanted to let him in. Because the thing about love in a town like Maplewood is this. It's dangerous. It's survival to keep your truth hidden, to play the part they want. And I had mastered that art. But Ethan didn't seem to care about the rules. One rainy evening, after the diner had closed, he waited outside. His hair was damp, his jacket clinging to him, but his eyes were relentless. You're scared, he said simply. Of what? I shot back. Of being seen. The words hit me like thunder. Nobody had ever called me out like that. Nobody dared. But Ethan wasn't like anybody else. I wanted to tell him to leave me alone, to stop peeling back layers I had buried years ago. But instead, I found myself standing there, the rain mixing with the heat rising inside me, wondering what it would feel like to stop hiding. And then, without asking, he stepped closer. Not too close, but close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him. Close enough that my defenses cracked just a little. Let me in, he whispered. I should have walked away. I should have done the smart thing. But the truth? For the first time in years, I didn't want to be smart. I wanted to feel. And that's where the mistake or the miracle began. By the time fall painted Maplewood in shades of gold and crimson, everything between Ethan and me had changed. What began with a midnight accident in a grocery store had grown into something that terrified and healed me all at once. But love in this town had never been simple. It was a quiet war fought in stolen moments, in shadows, in silence. And just when I thought I could protect what we had, the world reminded me that secrets have sharp edges. One Saturday evening, as I closed up the diner, I saw them, two men I had grown up with, guys who spent their nights drinking cheap beer and laughing about people like me. They saw Ethan waiting by his car, and their smirks told me everything. In towns like ours, rumors traveled faster than light. "Looks like our little loner's found himself a friend." One of them jeered. Ethan, never one to shrink away, just gave a half smile. "Yeah, and what of it?" The casual defiance in his voice made my stomach clench. I wanted to protect him, shield him from this ugliness, but he didn't flinch. He didn't play by the rules of silence. The men muttered something crude and walked away, but I knew it was only the beginning. In that moment, I realized that being with Ethan meant choosing between fear and freedom, between the life I had lived in shadows and the life I could build in the light. That night, under the street lamp outside his apartment, I finally broke. "This isn't going to end well," I told him, my voice heavy with years of self-preservation. "You don't understand what this town can do, what it can take." Ethan stepped closer, his hand brushing mine, grounding me. "Then let it try, because I'm not going anywhere. And I don't think you want me to." His words cracked something inside me. For so long, I had lived as though love was a luxury I wasn't allowed to touch. But here it was, stubborn and real, refusing to let go. For weeks, I wrestled with myself. There were nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the boy I used to beta, one who dreamed of love, of laughter, of someone who saw him. That boy had been buried under years of silence. But Ethan was digging him out. The turning point came on a chilly November night. The town square was alive with the festival lights strung across trees, kids chasing each other with cotton candy, the air sharp with the smell of cider. Ethan grabbed my hand in the crowd. I froze, instinct screaming at me to pull away. But when I looked at him, his eyes full of quiet defiance and warmth, something inside me shifted. For the first time, I didn't care who saw. I didn't care about whispers or judgments. I let my hand stay in his. Felt like jumping off a cliff. Terrifying, yes, but freeing. We spent that night wrapped in music, laughter, and the reckless joy of being ourselves. For once, I wasn't a ghost moving through Maplewood. I was alive. Of course, not everyone approved. The stares came, the hushed voices grew louder. But there was also something else, something unexpected. A few smiles. A nod from Mrs. Thompson at the library. A quiet, encouraging squeeze on the shoulder from my coworker at the diner. The world hadn't ended. Maybe it never would. Winter came, and with it a deeper intimacy. Nights spent on Ethan's couch with old movies playing in the background. Mornings where the smell of coffee mingled with the warmth of his laughter. Arguments too, about fear, about trust, about how hard it was to love in a place that didn't always welcome it. But every fight ended the same way, with apologies whispered against skin, with arms that refused to let go. The truth is, love isn't just the soft moments. It's the hard ones too, the ones that test you, that strip you bare, that ask if you're willing to keep choosing each other. One snowy night, as flakes drifted like tiny miracles outside his window, Ethan looked at me with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. "You've been running your whole life," he said softly. "But what if the Seuss, the place you're meant to stop?" I swallowed hard, my chest tight. For years, I thought happiness was something other people got to have. Not me. Never me. But looking at him, I realized that maybe I had been wrong. "I'm scared," I admitted. His hand found mine, firm and steady. "So am I. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." And that was it. The moment I stopped running. By spring, Maplewood felt different. Maybe it was me who had changed, finally allowing myself to exist without apology. Maybe it was the way Ethan walked beside me, his presence making every street feel less suffocating. Or maybe it was that love, real love, had a way of softening even the hardest places. The town didn't magically transform overnight. There were still whispers, still stares. But there was also laughter in the diner when Ethan sat in my booth, and warmth in my chest when Mrs. Thompson asked how we were doing. Slowly, the weight lifted. One evening, as the sun dipped low and fireflies began to dance. We found ourselves in the park, sitting on a worn bench beneath the glow of a street lamp. Ethan leaned into me, his head resting on my shoulder, and the world fell away. "Funny," he murmured. "All this started with milk." I laughed softly, pressing my forehead against his. "The most expensive carton of milk I'll ever buy." Silence settled between us, not heavy, but peaceful. For the first time, I wasn't worried about tomorrow. I wasn't bracing for pain. I was just there in that moment with him. I finally understood something I had been too afraid to believe. Love doesn't have to be loud to be real. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's fragile. Sometimes it's found in the most unexpected places, between two strangers who were never supposed to meet. But once it takes root, it grows stronger than fear. And as Ethan's fingers laced through mine, steady and sure, I realized this was not the end of the story. This was only the beginning. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.